Hello there, my name's Angela. The National Churches Trust have asked me to produce a series of videos to help the people that care for churches produce better photographs of their church and ultimately get more people exploring churches. So most of the advice I'll be giving you today will apply to most makes of camera and most models of smartphone. If you want very specific advice for your particular model, I suggest that you go to Google or to YouTube and you search, but you also search for the most recent articles, and you can also search specifically for videos on Google to find very, very graphical, very easy to understand help. So when we're talking about emotional photography, one of the key things you can use is the faces that exist within your church, such as in the carvings and in the statues and in the stained glass. We are biologically programmed to look at faces, particularly if they seem to be looking at us. So if you can take photographs of faces in your church, they will be very compelling. So when you're taking photographs of statues, if possible, get eye level with the statue, and that will bring the statue to life and make it a much more emotive photograph. If you're photographing people in your stained glass windows, get really close, as if you were taking a personal portrait of them. This will make people look at the photograph and wonder who the person is that's being depicted and want to know your story, and again want to visit your church to find out more about that story. If your churchyard is full of trees that blossom in the springtime, make sure you capture that moment. If it's a snowy, frosty day, venture out and get the photograph of your church with that beautiful dusting of frost. It will make a great Christmas card. If you happen to be near a crop that flowers at a certain time of year, go out and take the photograph of your church with that crop in the foreground. It will make a stunning image and it will tie your church to its landscape brilliantly. So don't forget, when the seasons change, when you've got that gorgeous photograph, go out and get it exactly the right time of year. If your churchyard is full of trees that turn a golden brown colour in autumn, get that photograph. Don't just expect to take one set of photos of your church and call it done. So as part of the set of photographs you build up to market your church and to get people exploring your church, don't miss the opportunity to photograph what we call God's acre, your church or graveyard. If it's a haven for wildlife, show this. See if you can capture wildlife in your church, perhaps put out bird feeders, perhaps put out bug hotels to encourage wildlife into your church. Perhaps leave an area of your churchyard where flowers can grow. So take the photographs of those wildflowers with the graves behind, with the church behind, to tell the story that not only will you be visiting a lovely church, you'll also be exploring a lovely little miniature wildlife oasis. So with your photography, borrow some of the tricks from the marketing industry and focus on telling one amazing story rather than trying to tell several stories about your church. Most churches have at least one super interesting story, super fascinating object. Use your photography to focus in on that. For example, you may have a page of your church records that you can put online through photography. And this could be from 200, 300 or 400 years ago. And you could really dig deep into the story that that page tells about your community. You may have a fantastic object such as the mosaic reredos, which is in this church. So as well as being an interesting object in itself, you can tell people who commissioned it, who paid for it, who designed it, who made it, and when was it made. And when you present people with all that information in a lovely, friendly, well-written style, when they visit that church and see that object, it's going to mean so much more to them. They're going to feel such a connection with it. And photographs are a key part of telling that story. So my message here is to photograph one amazing object and make that the headline act for your church. So another trick you can learn from modern photography is minimalism. Often a very simple photograph can be incredibly eye-catching. For example, if you just have very delicately coloured panes of stained glass, or if you have a lovely repeated patterns of tile on your floor, or if you have a lovely bright blue painted door to your church, just simply photographing that can be very effective, can make people stop and stare and want to know more about your church. Or you can also take a photograph of the pipes from your church organ, photographs that make a lovely pattern, a lovely backdrop to another message. These photographs can be used really well with posters because they allow text to be placed on top, because the image is so simple and clean underneath. So you can promote an event at your church with imagery that's absolutely tied to your church in the background. So now I'm going to talk to you about how you can take photographs that engage emotionally in the same way that book covers often do. So when you look at book covers, they hint at the story, but they don't reveal the whole story. So they make you want to pick the book up and read it. And you can do a similar trick with your church. For example, here we have a photograph of praying hands. Now looking closely, you can see they're a statue. So immediately the photograph makes you wonder, whose are those hands and what's their story? So with this photograph, your first instinct is to think, that's a photograph of a child. And then you look closer and realize it's a statue. Because we've taken the statue on eye level, it seems more immediate to us and more real. And then you perhaps notice that she's in Elizabethan clothing, so you know this can't be a modern statue. And then you notice she's carrying a skull. So all these things, when a person looks at these photographs, makes them wonder, where is that statue and what's her story? And hopefully they will come and explore your church to find the answer to that story. So that's why in photographs, it's really good to hint at a lot of stories, but not reveal the whole story. So this approach can obviously work outside your church too, especially if you have a churchyard that's full of trees. So you can choose to only show part of your church, a glimpse, perhaps one of the most intriguing aspects. And then people will wonder, what does the rest of the church look like? And then they will think, I'll visit that church. I'll find out what the rest of it looks like, because what I can see, it looks really stunning. So again, using the techniques that they use in the book industry to make people pick up a book and want to buy it and find out the story, use those techniques in your photographs to make people want to visit your church and find out its story. Another fantastic trick for taking an absolutely magical photograph of your church is to set out in what they call the golden hour. Now this is the brief hour where sun is rising or setting, and if you take photographs on a good sunny day at those times, you will get golden sunlight falling on your church and you'll get super long shadows, which also add drama to the image. So my advice to you is get out late or get up early in the golden hour, pack a picnic and take some fabulous photographs of your church in that enchanting golden light. Perhaps one of the easiest ways to get people emotionally engaged with your church is to make their children welcome and to show that their children are welcome through the kind of photographs you share about your church. People love to see children happy and engaged in their community, and they love to see children cherished. So make sure that your church photography does cover this. So obviously you'll have the children of your parishioners, of your congregation, who will be active in the church and who you can take photographs of. As everybody knows, if you make children welcome in the church, you win over their parents and their grandparents. Obviously, when photographing children, you should get written permission from their parents and make it absolutely clear where that photograph is going to be used. Another member of the community that you should show to be welcome in your church are animals. So as well as showing that you welcome wildlife into your graveyard, you should also show that you welcome dogs into your church, and dog walkers will soon follow. Show photographs of dogs enjoying visiting your church, being made welcome with a bowl of water. Sharing photographs of animals online is always going to be a hit. So why not show that dogs are welcome in your church and get some fabulous dog photographs to share online, and then you're winning on both fronts. Many churches are lucky enough to have stone animals in them, or stained glass animals, or carved wooden animals. Animals within the fabric of your church building make it very interesting to just about everybody, especially children and especially people that might not naturally want to explore a church. Another place where emotional photography and churches collide is food. Churches are well known for making absolutely fantastic homemade food, and if you combine that with some really good close-up photography, you've got a really winning formula. So this is covered in detail in other videos, but if you get your food placed in a good, strong, natural light, tap your screen to tell your camera or phone where to focus and where to expose for, and get that lovely, rich, crisp photograph of the food, that mouth-watering photograph of the food, and then just simply add the fact that you'll be able to eat this if you come and explore this church. Job done. Another photograph you can take with the food that's made for your church is a photograph perhaps of the person that made the cake, holding it up, ready to welcome people into the building. It's a great way to show that your church is very welcoming and has a great welcome waiting for you if you visit. The next type of photography I'm going to talk to you about is candid photography. If you don't know, candid photography means that the people don't pose for the photograph. They don't look at the camera, they don't put on their cheesy grin. Candid photography can give you the most genuine smiles and the most authentic images of people enjoying your church. But the downside is that you may have to be patient and you may have to take 20, even 30 photos before you get that good candid. Obviously, it's very important with candid photographs that you do actually get permission from the people before you take the photographs and before you use them, before you post them online, before you use them in print. So what I recommend you do is you obviously have a set of parishioners, a set of people that support your church. So I would ask them in advance if they're okay for their photograph to be taken, which gives you a set of people to photograph at any event. We'd also recommend that you get people to sign a model release form to say that they are happy to fully understand how they're going to be used. If you go to the Explore Church's website, you will be able to find a sample model release form to download and customise for your particular church. A lot of photographers really welcome the smartphone because it's small and inobtrusive, and it allows you to take candid photographs without people being too aware that you're doing so and being nervous and then clamming up. So this is the way I take candid photographs. I obviously find the people that are obviously enjoying each other's company within the church. So I line my photo up about here, and then I actually look at people in real life. I don't try and look through the screen, and I watch them in real life. And I wait for about 30 seconds, and then if they're British people, they will crack a joke within about 30 seconds, and then you'll get the smiles and the laughter and the eye contact that make a great candid photo. A really helpful facility that a lot of smartphones and digital cameras have is the burst mode. So what you do with the burst mode is you actually just keep the shutter button pressed, and the device will take many photos in a second, perhaps 20 or 30 within the space of a couple of seconds. And you can go back and pick the best photo from that 20 or 30 when people have the best expressions. So nobody's got their eyes closed, nobody's looking away from the camera too much. Another excellent feature that most smartphones and digital cameras have now is the facility to take a panoramic image, which means a long, thin image, and this can be horizontal or vertical. This is really handy for churches when you often have quite a panorama to show off your church. I'm just going to show you how this is done on an iPhone. So I switch in camera mode, I flick across there to where it says Pano, and you'll notice the white arrow and the yellow line, which indicates how we're going to do this. With panoramics of interiors, it's best to pivot the phone on a central point rather than swing the phone like that. I will start taking the panorama with the volume switch, but you can also use the shutter button. Starting over on the left here, you'll notice that there is a white arrow, which I'm making follow the yellow line as best I can, as I pivot the camera round to take in the whole area, and then stop. And that has taken a lovely panorama towards the altar in this church, a nice long thin photo.